we know that the ruling party uses a lot of money and they give this money to many of the voters in the rural areas. And many of these rural voters, they come from very poor communities, so they really need this money that is given by the ruling party. So when this money goes down to the ground, very often these diets will vote accordingly.
So does that mean they are buying their votes?
Yes, it's vote buying. It's done openly in Sabah and Sarawak.
砂拉越的多元社会铸就了迥异的政治环境。占人口多数的达雅族究竟有什么诉求？政治分析员詹运豪认为，土著习俗权土地是达雅人最关心的问题之一。
So basically, the Dayak community is split into two different groups. One is the urban group. One, of course, is the rural Dayaks. In the urban groups, they're more educated. So basically, what they want is more political power. So a lot of them are thinking about the fact that even though the Dayaks are a majority in Sarawak, they haven't had a Dayak chief minister since the 1960s. So the first Sarawak chief minister, Stephen Kalauningkang, was a Iban. Second one was also a Dayak, and after that, from 1970 onwards, there was no longer any Dayak chief ministers. So basically, the Dayaks are quite angry about this. They say we are the majority in Sarawak and yet we don't have a chief minister. Now, in terms of the Dayak living in the rural areas, majority of them just wants a better life. They want more infrastructure. They also worry about the issue of NCR lands. NCR is basically traditional lands belonging to the Dayak. The reason why it is controversial is because they don't have a title to this land. So as long as you don't have a title to this land, the state government can take away this land anytime they want. So basically, for the modern Dayak community, two big issues. One is the issue of political power. The other issue is access to Dayak lands. They want title and they want the state government to recognize their right to NCR lands. So the NCR issue has been going in Sarawak since the 1970s. So what has happened is that more and more of those lands are taken over by developers. What they do is normally they'll get a land lease from the state government, which give them the right to this land. But very often, many of these lands given to the lease to the private companies for things like timber extraction and palm oil plantation, many of these links encroach on the land that the Dayaks use for their daily living. The problem is that the Dayaks cannot prove to the state government that they own these traditional lands, and therefore the state has the legal right, we're talking about the law here, has the legal right to issue this lease to private companies. So that is where the tension is between the Dayaks who want their traditional lands back and the state who said that you don't have the right to these traditional lands. These are actually land owned by the state government and we're leasing it out to private companies.
詹运豪指出，砂拉越的原住民，尤其达雅人，希望拥有更多的政治权利。无奈达雅族群犹如一盘散沙，向心力不足，因此总是事与愿违。另一方面，他提到乡区或者是原住民聚集的选区，基本上都是原执政党的堡垒，但是也有数个地方因为出现了非常强大的人物而打破惯例，成为反对党的据点。
It is widely expected that in the rural areas, in the Malay Melanau areas, the overwhelming majority of the seats there, and that's close to 40 seats, the overwhelming majority will go to PBB. The only competitive seats in the coming Sarawak elections will be selected Dayak majority seats and also the Chinese urban areas. Most people will tell that most of the Malay Melanau Muslim seats are not competitive at all. It will probably be won by the PBB. It's very, very difficult for the opposition to win the Longhouse vote because of two or three key issues. The first one, of course, in the Longhouse, many of the Dayaks living in the Longhouse are afraid to vote against the government because if they vote against the government, they'll be punished. So the government will not give them any help. So, for example, the government will not build them any infrastructure, and that is a big issue. Secondly, right, we know that the ruling party uses a lot of money. And they give this money to many of the voters in the rural areas. And many of these rural voters, they come from very poor communities, so they really need this money that is given by the ruling party. So when this money goes down to the ground, very often these Dayaks will vote accordingly.
So is that mean they are buying their votes?
Yes, it's vote buying. It's done openly in Sabah and Sarawak. So the major reasons why the opposition made some headway in the Dayak communities was because in those areas where they lost the election, two issues were very prominent. One, of course, is that in many of those areas of Bacalalan, the personality of the candidate was very important. People like Baru Bian, who is very well known in the community. He's a strong NCR lawyer, strong defender of native rights. So his personality was quite strong.